All right, I want to thank everybody for giving me lots of information on the compulsory figure skating. Are you ready for this? Compulsory, and we were talking about the this portion of the Olympics that is no longer there. Part of figure skating used to include what Manaski had said, compulsory figures, and was it Tom that called in and said school figures? That is also another name for it. They were formerly an aspect of figure skating, and I think it might have ended in maybe the 80 Olympics, somewhere around there. But it literally is carving specific patterns or figures into the ice was the original focus of the sport. The patterns of compulsory figures all derived from the basic figure eight. Although figures no longer exist in competition, they have evolved into the contemporary moves in the field, which we see today, which is figure skating. But up until, I don't know, maybe a decade ago or maybe 20 years ago, that used to be a part of the Olympics. And it was very slow because they were literally, it was almost like you were going out and creating some sort of artwork.
Well, it left an impression on you, though.
I miss it. I miss it. Yeah, and I miss black and white TV, too.
Can we clear up this voting thing?
Christine.
Because now this is the third.
People are questioning your story on whether or not you can change your affiliation, your party affiliation.
So if you've not registered, or if you're in another state and you're registering in New York for the first time, you can change your affiliation. If you're coming from another state and moving here and you haven't registered, you can change your affiliation as a first-time voter in New York. So I didn't clarify that. But if you are a registered voter in the state of New York in a specific party...
But that would really be just registering to vote. You have to, if you go to another state or you change an address, you have to register to vote.
Right.
So then the deadline for registration is
coming up. It's March 25th, I think.
But if you are a Democrat and you wanted to vote in the Republican primary, I think that's where people are getting confused.
Too late.
You cannot.
I think it's too late.
You couldn't do that until after the November election.
So March 25th.
Your SOT out of Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yep. See, years ago we couldn't say that, but now that Trump's around, you can even do those little things. Anyway, so registration, and the reason this is this way is because they're trying to prevent people from bopping over into, maybe a Democrat who's really a loyal Democrat moving over into the Republican Party just to try to oust someone. Which, by the way, there was a lot of talk yesterday in some of the states. I heard one interview on CNN or Fox News. It was one of them yesterday. They had an interview with somebody who had just voted. And he was a Democrat who voted, and I'm not sure if it was Michigan or Mississippi or wherever it was. It must have been Michigan. But he was a Democrat who voted Republican. He voted in the Republican primary, and they allow that in the primary in that state. And he said that he voted for Donald Trump. You know why? Because he feels that Hillary can kill and crush Donald Trump in the general. So as a loyal Democrat, he voted for Donald Trump.
He was bopping.
Is that what they call it? Bopping?
No, it's what you call it.
Oh, yeah. He was bopping. As long as I'm calling it that, I might as well keep it there. But how many people do you think really do that?
I think people who are savvy about this process do it. They also know the deadlines. They also play the game. So, like, I know somebody, for example, who vacations in a certain state and is a registered voter in that state, and then who is also a registered voter in this state. And because of the fact that nobody challenges or catches that.
Because that's not legal, right? You can't be registered
totally
in two
illegal.
states. Yeah.
It's completely illegal. But
how many people do you think do that, though? Like, play this game where they can...
Is Andrew anywhere nearby? Phones are, like, ringing off the hook. Go ahead. How many play the game?
Someone, yeah.
It's interesting because it was brought up yesterday after that interview, CNN or Fox, whoever was talking about it, and they said they really don't believe that many people do it, and kind of like what Christine you just said is that if you're in the game,
it's fun for you to try to
you think you're being kind of clever and you're messing with the system,
right?
But the number of people that really do it is probably very small.
And also,
in the big picture,
I hate to tell you, but you're kind of wasting your time because it doesn't really impact much. Now, if everybody did it,
correct. If there was a big movement, we would all know about it. But this is some like little secret thing going on. I don't believe it's all that large at all.
Bill, we've got Tom on the line. He says he's an expert on this topic. So
which one, figure skating or
no,
bopping?
This is the bopping, I think, not the figure skating.
Good morning, Bopper. This is the big Bopper.
I'm a bigger bopper than you are. Not 256, not 254 today. Listen, it's been done consistently. There was an orchestrated effort in Alabama this last year in a primary down there where the Democrats sent their voters in this dumb open primary system.
Yeah,
and
I
to
don't
vote
understand
for the weaker
it,
of the two Republicans, and the weaker of the two Republicans won because of it, and they lost in the general. Here in New York, the Independence Party allows unaffiliated voters to vote in their primary.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah,
and no.
Well, I'm just.
Here's what happened. It was Pataki running in a primary against our founder, Tom Golisano, and the Republicans organized a goodly number of unaffiliateds to come in and try to vote for Pataki in the primary. And they almost beat Golisano. They spent nearly $12 million on the campaign, on the primary campaign, and it was unsuccessful. But they did have an active organizational effort to come and do that. Now, let me give you the idea about this open primary thing.
Let's look before you say that. Somebody writes in here. That's why every state should have an open primary and give everyone an opportunity to vote for whomever they want when they want. Now, I got to tell you, Tom, I know you would be against this, but so but so am I, because you have to understand what this is. What this really—it's a party, the Republican Party, the Democrat Party. They are now selecting their candidate. This is not an open general election.
They're selecting their opponent.
If the Democrats or the Republicans all got together and said we're changing the rules, we're no longer going to have primaries. We're just going to pick our candidate. They could do it. It's their own party. They can do whatever they want. Right?
When we were, the League of Women Voters was having a meeting about how to increase voter turnout in elections. They said, well, let's have open primaries. Well, I stood up and gave them both barrels by saying, okay, let's have the election right now. Let's have the Women's Party and the Women Haters Party. And it's an open primary. And so the Women Haters Party decides that they're going to organize their people and send them into the Women's Party, and blow the hell out of them, and pick the worst candidate to go into the election and then knock their blocks off. And here's how the open party things get done, that get passed. The dominant party in a state gets the legislation for open primaries put in so that they can maintain their dominance.
Right.
It's dumb.
I agree. It does not make any of this open voting for primaries makes absolutely.
You want the enemy to run to have any influence.
Yes.
Not just a little, but to have any possibility of influence.
It is like saying that radio station A could have their competitor stop by and change their format. I mean, no one would ever allow such a thing. Why would you want that to happen? You're allowing, as you say, the enemy to make their way in and create a disturbance.
And you don't. And let me tell you, it's rock solid proof. It's done, and it's been done, and it's going to be done. And they need to never have another state do this. And I always thought New York State's election laws were goofy when I was the chairman of the Independence Party. But now, when we see this complete screwed, just the mix master thing going on with these primaries, good old New York State was pretty wise.
Yeah, I think you're. I'm with you on this one, Tom. I appreciate it. Thank you for bopping in, Tom.
I wanted to ask him to do the grr just one more time before he hung up.
He was pretty good with the grr.
This gets complicated when you talk about, or this whole issue has gotten complicated by the voter registration, because some say voter registration would end some of this nonsense of people going back and forth and. I mean, mandatory voter IDs for registration.
I see the IDs. Yeah. No. Well, again, how is somebody registered in Rhode Island and registered in New York at the same time? Really interesting question, specifically for me, because I was in both states. But you can't vote in both places, right? If you do
legally, you're saying
legally. But I know somebody that voted in both Massachusetts.
See, we both know people who've done this.
Rhode Island. Yeah. They voted both places for Clinton. Interesting. Here is Jeff Manaski with an update. Good morning. I'm sorry, no, we're going to break?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm all over the place. This kid is coming in, Ryan Quinn from The Voice. He's going to be in studio. He is wowing the judges on NBC's The Voice. Really excited to have him in studio. Coming up at 7:35. Hold on, coming right back. Next is Ben Carson's, this is really big, Ben Carson's senior consultant is coming on next to talk about the race and what's happened and Ben Carson dropping out, all of that, next on WIBX.